let's talk about the next property, which is the flex align property. Now, let's first try to find it in the inspector. When we go under our flex section, just beneath it, you can find the align section, and you can see that it basically just has two properties. Now, this is probably the property or the section that is the easiest to grasp because you can kind of see it a little bit more isolated, where you really look at one container and then look at your two settings here. It doesn't tend to have so much influence on other elements, so that's a good thing, because the biggest reason for it is probably that it doesn't change sizes generally of the elements, except one of the settings that we will look at in a second. We will have a look in a second. So that's a good thing. We can go over those properties pretty quickly. They are, however, pretty powerful in letting you do quick, simple layouts and also quite nice layouts. They are powerful in allowing you to do things pretty quickly for what you needed quite a lot of time in those old UI systems. Okay, so again, we have the problem that that Unity does not give us any tooltips on what those settings actually are. So we have to help ourselves. What I did, I just wrote down the names of those settings on the left-hand side and showed the consequences on the right-hand side. So we have our familiar setup where we have one container that is having a row orientation and our three items. And now the first one that we are going to look at is the justify content property, because as we said, the justify content property is regarding the main axis. So since our container has a row orientation, that means our main axis is the horizontal axis. And justify content now decides how to distribute, how to do the spacing on this axis. Okay, so the first property that you can choose is the flex start. And flex start, as you would expect, what it does, it takes your elements and puts them on the start of your axis. Now, our main axis is going from left to right, so our elements are also going from left to right. The second one, also pretty clear, it now just takes your elements and centers them on your axis. Now, for this element, our axis is kind of exactly this here, so this means that the three elements end up exactly in the middle. The last one of this little group, let's say, you could group those three kind of together, is flex end. And obviously, as opposed to flex start, flex end just puts them to the end of your main axis. Now, you might or might not remember one thing, what we did earlier when we were talking about the direction, where we ended up with a kind of similar picture, which was setting the direction to row reverse. However, when we do that, we see that we don't actually get the same result as with setting them to flex end, because it actually takes those elements and kind of places them one after the other, and it places the first element at the first position, the second at the second position, and the third at the third position. And that means that the order of the elements is reversed. Whereas with flex end, the only thing that happens is that they still remain in the same order. They are just pushed to the end of your main axis. So this was flex start, flex center, and flex end. As I said, you can kind of see them as a group that basically just takes all your elements together and distributes them to the start, middle, or end. And then you have two other properties, or two settings that have kind of their own group, or you could also put them together now. It doesn't matter, however, they are different than the first three ones. And you can also see like this, this naming is pretty verbose in the sense that we actually know what it's doing. And what it's doing is it takes our container, looks at our items, calculates how much space is there to distribute, and it puts equal amounts of space between your items. So when we would take this yellow item and just add another one of those to the container, you can see that now we don't have a item in the middle because we have an even number of items. That means the only way to distribute the space evenly is to have a gap cover the middle. When we remove this, then our yellow item jumps to the middle again. And with space around, things are a little bit different, that the space is not distributed between the elements, but each element gets an equal amount of space to the left and the right of it. So you can see this results in having a bigger gap here because we kind of have a portion of space that is coming from the red element and a portion of space that is coming from the yellow element, and those two together make up this bigger space, whereas on the sides we only have kind of one portion of space, and that results in smaller gaps on the sides. However, you can already imagine with particularly those two settings, in combination with those first three settings, you can create all sorts of different layouts. Obviously, when you combine it with the direction that we had before, there's almost already an endless amount of different layouts and setups that you could create.